You are now locked into the Red and Blue Rivalry podcast, the podcast where we talk all things San Francisco 49ers and Dallas Cowboys.
My name is Eric Hernandez, and I'm repping the faithful.
I am Philip Enriquez, and I'm repping for America's team. But on this one, we're going to specialize on the red side here. We're going to recap the big San Francisco 49er victory over the Carolina Panthers by the score of 51-13. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers are rolling, man.
Yeah, this was just a complete demolition. And I think most experts thought, myself included, that the Niners would win, but maybe by 7 points, 4. I mean, you had some people thinking that, Carolina was going to win because this was one of the toughest tests the Niners had ever faced so far in the season. And yet they came out, opening drive, went right down the field, showcased their new toy, Emmanuel Sanders, third down conversion, touchdown. And I mean, the story of the game was their running game is like calculus. Kyle Shanahan has built a running game that is the best running game in the league right now. And it is being done without their all-pro fullback. It's being done without their great tackles, Staley and Mike McGlinchey. And, right now you walk away with that game and it's like, wow.
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed by that victory because I didn't expect a victory of that magnitude.
Yeah.
For sure. The running game looked unstoppable, and that's saying something against a Carolina defense led by Luke Kuechly.
Yes, and he just, it's his thing is that when you can confuse someone as smart as Luke Kuechly, and that's what they did. They had guys just completely baffled with the jet motions, ghost motions, orbits. You guys had guys standing around, and even I think one of my favorite plays was something was simple. But the complexity and the eye candy around it is what made it awesome, was the kind of inside handoff to Deebo Samuel for the touchdown. I mean, you think he's going to pitch it. You think he's going to, he's going to give it back to somebody. It's an inside handoff to Deebo Samuel that goes for a touchdown. I mean, on offense, they just kind of had their way with the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, and overall, just, after the big win, I started looking up a few stats, and, I mean, it's pretty impressive. I mean, this is the best start for the San Francisco 49ers since 1990 when they started 10-0.
Yes.
Sunday's 51 points were the most since they scored 55 against the Lions in 1993. The 49ers, it's their fourth straight game holding opponents to fewer than 100 yards net passing.
I mean, that's amazing.
That's you're starting to get to all time, and with a franchise like the 49ers, that's impressive.
Yes, and I think what's interesting is that when I look at Allen's raw passing, he had 158 yards. The reason why he was held under 100 is because of the sacks, and this team can get after him. It's like Shark Week with this team. Brian Baldinger has these breakdowns that he does on Twitter, and he just calls it Shark Week because these guys are all just sharks. They just hunt. I mean, when you're getting a nose tackle like DJ Jones, which was one of my favorite plays to watch.
I've seen that one.
He's huge. He's our nose tackle. He's in charge of sharpening the red. And he rolls out and catches Kyle Allen. I mean, Kyle Allen's not Russell Wilson or anything, but he should have still been able to avoid that sack. And then, Nick Bosa, he's almost put a lock on Rookie of the Year as far as defensive side goes. He's got a nose towards just Defensive Player of the Year.
I think he's a shoo-in for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's a legitimate Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And I think he's even starting to make his way into the conversation of just MVP, man.
I mean, he just transformed that defense. And I forget who on Twitter brought up and to talk to the Cowboys, how the Cowboys had been investing in offensive linemen, whether it was Tyron Smith, and then you traded back and got your center, Frederick. And the last piece of the puzzle was
Zach Martin,
right? Once he got there, he unlocked that offensive line. And I think that's what Nick Bosa has. Nick Bosa has unlocked that defensive line. And when you look at a guy who has the most sacks, or he's tied, with Julius Peppers for the most sacks through the first 7 starts of his career, and the first 3 were on a bum ankle, the sacks, he was on the floor 1 second, and then sacking Kyle Allen the next.
That's pure effort.
Yeah.
Those are pure effort sacks.
And then the one where the interception, I mean, that was, the guy tried to cut him.
Yeah.
He was having none of that, jumped up in the air, picked it off. And then you got offensive players making business decisions on whether to tackle him. I mean, right now, this team is operating on all cylinders. I look at even Garoppolo. I mean, he was efficient. He had one bad pick, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But he was, 18 of 22, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, at this point, with the offense and the running game that they have, what more can you ask of them? And I know that there's a lot of not detractors, but there are a lot of people kind of saying they're not sure about him.
Right. I'll raise my hand right now. I'm kind of one of them. It's not that I think that he's going to cost the 49ers a trip to the playoffs or anything like that. I mean, it's far from that. This team, like you said, is running on all cylinders. But if there's a weak cylinder that's got a little knock to it, it's Jimmy Garoppolo right now. The only thing that I'm going to say before I even start talking about the offense is the defense. They've had, 3 sacks in 4 straight games for the first time since 1998.
Yeah.
You're starting to get to not just good defense, not just great defense, but all-time
Historic
defense. You're reaching that level. And look, Bosa, 20 tackles on the year, 11 tackles for loss, 12 hits on the quarterback, 7 sacks.
All around. He does everything.
And he's only started 5 games, technically, even though he's played 7.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's impressive. And when you got a player like that has sparked the whole light that is your defense, Jimmy Garoppolo is the least of your concerns. But just since we're there, we're picking this team apart. I just think that a player like Jimmy Garoppolo, he has a tendency to turn the ball over too much. And he has no excuses because he has that awesome of a defense. He has that awesome of a running game. He has, and you've said it yourself, a genius of a head coach.
Yes.
What is his excuse for consistently turning the ball over game after game after game?
Now, this is to everybody who kind of just sees the stats, and I get it because, you're watching your favorite team and then you see the Niners and you look at the statistics and you see that what happened in. I mean, you look to the Steelers game where he threw 2 interceptions, and neither one were his fault. I mean, you have things bouncing off receivers' hands. Now, I will say this before I go into I think Jimmy G is overly criticized. Does he make bonehead throws? Oh, yeah. I mean, no offense, but I just...
49ers Twitter had, he got his boneheaded throw out of the way.
Yeah.
I see those tweets.
Yeah, he's good for one a game. And sometimes they catch it, the defense will catch it, and sometimes they won't. We used to call them Romos. Those are little Romos.
Yeah, all right.
Every once in a while, you'll just sit there and go, why do you throw that? There's no reason to throw that. You shouldn't have thrown that. But just going over the statistics that I think matter, because it's hard for a guy like Jimmy when you talk about judging him, because they don't throw that much. I mean, 22 attempts. That's nothing. In the NFL at this point, that's nothing. But let's just go by the percentages. What does he do when he's in charge of the ball? On first down yards per attempt, and this is courtesy of the Monday Morning Quarterback on Twitter, Jimmy G is 79 out of 189, which is first in the NFL. Percentages, third. Third and 8 or plus. So 3rd and 8, and he's got to throw the ball because they're not going to run it.
3rd and long.
Yeah.
Passing situations.
He is 9 of 24, which ranks him 5th in the NFL. Second half, his rating, just NFL quarterback rating, is 112.8, which ranks him 5th in the NFL. So, and one last thing is, there's a Cowboy fan that's, well known, was on ESPN, now on Fox, who lives and dies by QBR. Jimmy Garoppolo is 9th in QBR. He's a top 10, according to QBR, quarterback in this league. So the reason I bring those numbers up is very simple. Is that sometimes we look at things, we look at kind of like, oh, well, how many interceptions did he throw? Oh, he threw 3. Well, how many were his fault? And I mean, we've talked about it with Dak. When you have some that are just, they bounce off receivers' hands.
Right, which most of those interceptions this year have been. That's been the case.
Side note, and we're not going to go off on topic a little bit, but, we're watching the World Series is on, and they have errors in baseball, right?
Right.
Where they don't put it on a pitcher. I think they should have errors for interceptions. This belongs to the wide receiver. Went off his hands because it shouldn't belong to the quarterback. If he made the throw and it bounced off a receiver's hands, that should be belonging to the receiver, not to the quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's arguable. Yeah,
And I look at Jimmy, and he's had some horrible. He had a horrible one against Tampa. He had a god awful one against Cincinnati, and he had a bad one against the Redskins. But the one we're going to talk about, this one, the game, against Carolina, and then the one he gave to Luke Kuechly. Now, just breaking this down, the first time I saw that interception live, I was heated. I was like, goddamn Garoppolo. Literally the first words out of my mouth. Then you watch the play again, and you realize what George Kittle is doing in that play is he's running a drag concept, and he beat Luke Kuechly, and he's running even with Luke Kuechly. So if he runs that route and he stays at that depth of target, and Garoppolo, 2 things are going to happen when Garoppolo makes that throw. either Kuechly's going to be able to bat it down, but he's not in position to really pick it off, or he's going to tackle Kittle for no gain. What Kittle ends up doing is he starts moving towards the sticks, and that allows Luke Kuechly to cut underneath, which,
Right.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, you need to know that, and I think that Garoppolo will get more experience. We talked about this offline where you're in the cars. It doesn't matter how many, online courses you take, how many simulations you take, sitting in the passenger seat. There's nothing like driving and being behind the wheel of a car. There's nothing like it.
Right. Nothing's going to teach you as quickly. You're not going to learn as much unless you're behind the wheel.
And this is his first full year of starting under this offense. So I think a lot of his interceptions are things like, okay, I know not to do that again. Or, okay, I'm making these mistakes. I need to fix them. Some of them are unforgivable. And, I think some of them may be just who he is. But when I look at him, I feel comfortable at night knowing he's my quarterback. I have no worries about this team. I never feel like he's going to cost us a game. And I think he's proven, if you looked at his career from start to finish, he's proven he can win some games.
Oh, he's definitely proven he can win some games. I would just say this. When you play the New Orleans Saints, it's going to be a different story, or it could be. Now, on the 49ers side, here's the thing. You compared it to driving an automobile and being behind the wheel for the first time, which in a sense Jimmy Garoppolo sort of is. But at a certain point, you have to be improving.
Yeah.
So we need to start seeing these turnovers happen less and
I
less
agree.
as the season progresses. This is still the first half of the season, but we're pretty much at midseason. You should expect these turnovers to cut in half if you think you're going to make some serious damage against a team like, say, the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
No, I agree
I'm
with
not
you.
judging him based on week 7
Yeah.
or week 8.
Yeah.
I am now judging him on, hey, when you go up against a playoff caliber defense, you cannot make those mistakes because those mistakes will turn from 1 to 3. And it's game over in the playoffs.
No, I agree with you. If it becomes a problem like that, the issue I think with him is that he's not able to show. Like if he were able to throw the ball the way I think he can, I mean, he could walk away. If he walked away with 3 touchdowns, 325 yards passing, and 1 interception, it's a footnote.
Yeah.
But the fact is they don't throw the ball. So if he's got 22 and 1 is one bad throw where they caught it, I'm not saying this is only bad throw, but in this game, that was kind of what it was, So, Jimmy, I agree with you. This team, I know we talk about the defense and the running game, but as long as he can stay the course and he can convert on third down and be what he's been on third down, this team is going to be hard to beat. And, we talked about offseason, offline, what we thought our Super Bowl was going to look like. I mean, the Niners are going to be in contention for that Super Bowl come January.
So that brings us to the upcoming game. They travel to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. The 49ers now are rolling. They're big favorites. What do you see going down in this game this weekend?
This is a game that, I'm always nervous of short games away from home. It's Arizona, which isn't that far, one flight. You're not going across country. But you're facing a team you've never faced before as far as an offense. This is your first crack at Kyle Kingsbury. 2 things. 1.
Cliff Kingsbury. You're getting Kyle Shanahan-itis.
Yeah, sorry about that. Cliff Kingsbury, which is funny because he was supposed to be the USC offensive coordinator, but you took that job with the Cardinals. Hope that works out for you. Anyways, 2 things. 1, the longest losing streak against a team that the Niners have is actually against Arizona. They've beaten Seattle. Yeah, they have not beaten Arizona in many, many years. It's been a while. They beat Seattle last year. 2 years ago, they beat the Rams. They have not beaten the Cardinals in those times. So this is the first time they have a chance to really beat them. Yeah, as they were the number 1 overall pick with their 2 wins coming against the Niners.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
That's ridiculous on so many levels. But I will always make sure I send them a fruit basket because they decided to pass on Nick Bosa for Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Which landed us Nick Bosa.
Paying dividends.
Oh, yeah. Now this game. I think this is going to be a very low-scoring, close game because I think that the short week is going to hurt the Niners. I think that they're going to keep the ball on the ground, but I don't think they're going to be as explosive. They're going to want to get in and out as quickly as possible. They want to get through without any injuries, and I think it's going to take them a while to adjust to Kyle Kingsbury's offense. Now, I think that if this was a normal week, I'd have
Cliff Kingsbury.
Damn it.
Man, come on.
Kingsbury.
Kingsbury.
Just call him Kingsbury.
Kingsbury.
if this was a normal week, I expect them to adjust to Cliff Kingsbury's offense. But, a short week in Arizona, while I do predict a win, and I do think they'll win by like 10 points, that's the most. I don't think they're going to blow them out the way they blew out the Cardinals.
Really?
The Panthers. No, because that's a short week. Short week's always nervous, or I'm always nervous about short weeks.
Especially going on the road, even though it's not
far.
Like
it's still on the road.
Cross country. It's still the road.
And you just blew out a team. So you're feeling high. You're looking forward to their next game after the Cardinals is Monday night, welcoming Seattle, another bully of our division we want to prove something to. So this is one of those games. I wouldn't call it a trap game because I don't think they really can beat the Niners, but I think they can scare the Niners. If they come out slow, the Niners come out slow, they come out, lethargic, only having 4 days, having to travel. I think that, they could be taken by surprise a little bit. At the end of the day, I think the Niners run game and defense will shut down Arizona. But the game last week against New Orleans, Arizona was in it for like a half before.
Before Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Became Drew Brees.
So I think that's something similar like that can happen where it's close a lot longer than people think.
No, I totally think that it's a division rivalry game. It's a short week. All signs point to a potential trap game, like you were stating. But again, in the end, it's going to have to be the case of the San Francisco 49ers beating themselves.
Yeah.
They're going to have to – it's going to be that the 49ers showed a lack of effort for this Arizona Cardinals team to be able to pull off the upset. Because I see if both these teams are engaged – there's only one result.
Yeah.
It's the 49ers all the way in this one.
Yeah.
I think I'm picking the 49ers to take the win. I know, like I said, I know it's a division game. I know that, like you said, it's a potential trap game, but there's just, at a certain point, talent is talent.
Yeah.
Talent will take over the game.
Yeah.
And I expect that to be the case.
Yeah, I look at it like if something happens like the Pittsburgh game where they turned it over like 5 times, they're dropping the ball. That's where I get scared. Like we have another Pittsburgh game. But at the end of the day, the Niners are probably one of the most talented teams in the NFC. Top to bottom, running game, offensive line, scheme. It's like calculus. Shanahan's literally PhD in running right now. And you have that defense. And at the end of the day, talent wins, like you said. And I got the Niners winning, going to 8-0 and getting ready for an old friend.